Well, hello, I'm Rachel Bailey, and online is Becca Duncan, the co-organiser of this series of talks looking at sustainable design solutions for the land, Zero Waste Scotland. And we have Nick Ribbons of Zero Waste Scotland online with us today too. This talk is being recorded and will be showed widely afterwards, so just bear that in mind if you don't want to be seen. If you have any questions during the session, please put it in the chat box and we'll come back and hopefully have a really good discussion after the presentation. So tonight we have Dr. Sam Chapman, the MD of Kenoteq, which is a spin-off company from Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh. Sam will be talking about the K-Briq, which is a game-changing building material made mostly of recycled waste. Sam has a master's in structural engineering with architectural design and a PhD in carbon assessment of wind power. This led his interest in developing sustainable building materials. And I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to pass you over to Sam. Thank you, Sam.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much, Rachel, Becca, and Nick for organising this talk this evening. I hope you're all safe and well. I'm going to start off by sharing a video on YouTube that goes through a bit of the production and a bit of the background about Kenoteq and its first product, the K-Briq, and then I'm going to share a presentation with you, all with a view to getting feedback afterwards and hearing more from yourselves and questions, because that will be incredibly valuable for me. So without further ado, I'm going to just share this quick video with you. Can everybody see that? Hopefully.
So the K-Briq is responding to three big challenges in construction and indeed society. Mainly brick shortages, so 2.6 billion bricks will be used this year and over 600 million of those are being imported, and which is stifling growth and supply and projects. And also house building is critical for society, and up to 300,000 new homes will be needed a year in the UK, possibly even more. So we need materials to plug that gap. And also indeed EU legislation around waste reduction. 70% of all building materials will need to be recycled and zero to go to landfill. And we feel those three challenges have presented a huge opportunity for us and for Kenoteq to make the K-Briq a simple and elegant solution to those problems. So fundamentally, the K-Briq is made from over 90% recycled demolition and construction waste. So with our waste partners, the waste materials come into us, that is SEPA certified inert waste, and we blend that in our unique innovative process, also with some waste plasterboard and our own secret sauce, to bring together the K-Briq through compression and our innovative process.
So you've got a complete closed circular economy, waste coming off-site, coming to us, the waste contractor, recycled and manufactured into a product that can be sold back to the construction industry.
It's also not fired like a traditional clay brick, So you don't have 1200 degrees Celsius, all of the associated fossil fuel use and carbon emissions. And also we don't use any cement. And as we now know, cement is one of the largest contributors to global warming and carbon emissions. So by removing all of those things and using recycled materials, this is an incredibly sustainable material.
Working with the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre was a pleasure. They have a very enthusiastic team that have supported us from the very beginning through the whole process of the project, and they brought ideas. They were not just giving what was required for the project, but they brought other potential ideas, potential partners. They brought us the facilities, the factory. We were able to use their machinery to test potential different equipment for the production of the brick at early stages. This guides us through our path to get to the final product and final manufacturing process.
Okay, everyone, excuse the odd plug in there for funders, etc. But obviously to be where we are now, we're very grateful.
This is part 2. Make sure you check out part 1. The link is in the description below, or hit the thumbs up.
Gosh, hang on.
And thank you for watching.
Bear with me.
Sorry, Nick, while we're just having an interlude there, can you just check the waiting room again? I just had a text from somebody. Thanks.
Am I okay to continue, guys? Are you happy for me to roll on to my presentation? Sorry about that little glitch there in my... So hello everyone. I don't want to rehash too many things that were shown in the video, but it's exciting for me to share a bit more about our journey as Kenoteq, and indeed new developments and how Kenoteq is bringing new products to obviously the construction industry, but also what we're excited about is exploring this landscaping avenue and indeed garden design and other avenues for this product, the K-Briq, and future products from Kenoteq. So as was talked about there in the video, our entire ethos has been about being a closed loop circular economy business and developing products and services around that entire ethos. Our K-Briq, as stated, is about 1/10 of the carbon footprint of traditional clay-fired bricks, and about 14% of concrete blocks by weight. So a much more sustainable product, and indeed through reusing recycled demolition construction waste, we feel like we're bringing a brand new innovation to an industry in need of such change. And our entire purpose is to supply the most innovative and sustainable construction products the building world has seen in generations. These were briefly touched on, but these have been the challenges certainly in house building and in construction that we've been responding to. There are significant brick shortages, and indeed this is only set to continue with the likes of Brexit, with 500 million bricks being imported each year, 2.6 billion being used across the UK each year. And indeed within Scotland, 85% of bricks that are used each year come from outside of Scotland. So we feel both from a sustainable standpoint and indeed a supply standpoint, this needs to change. There's only one brick manufacturer left here in Scotland, which is a travesty. There's new waste legislation that's been coming in year on year. This is EU legislation that covers the construction industry. And by 2021, by this year, the end of the year, 70% of all construction waste will need to be recycled, with 0 going to landfill. So you can understand some of the bottlenecks that are going on, and the vast change that needs to happen this year. And obviously we're all aware of the larger environmental and societal issues that come with products that have a high carbon footprint. I heard recently that the cement industry, if it was a country, would be the 3rd highest emitter on the planet. So that's something for us all to bear in mind. So Kenoteq is obviously offering circular models, both through our business model of working with waste handlers and working on their sites to develop new products, and indeed within the product design itself. So obviously the K-Briq is over 95% recycled content that goes into the product, and that's all coming from recycled aggregates, recycled plasterboard, and other inert demolition and construction waste, and indeed recycled pigments, which I'll go on to show you a little bit more in a second. And we also don't want to just be developing standard products. We want to be looking into the future. How can our products help with new smart construction, so off-site construction that might be happening, and next generation building, things like fit homes, smart homes, developments that can really add something to us as a society. So our first product, the K-Briq that you see in our dark grey there on the left-hand side, this is, as said, there's no firing in our product, in the production of our products, 1/10 the carbon footprint of clay comparison bricks. We feel we're the first to market with such a high recycled content, and indeed for exterior use. We also have these bespoke colour options, which we'll go into later. So we're not tied down so much like the clay industry with the extraction of the raw clay, largely giving the colours that you see in traditional clay bricks. So we can be more nimble, and indeed we can follow the resource, i.e. the construction and demolition waste, and be much closer to that. We have been doing extensive in-house testing. So we're, as said, we're a spin-out company from Heriot-Watt University. We've been doing in-house testing, and we're also now working with the BBA, the British Board of Agremont, to get an Agremont certificate for our product, for a variety of applications. And indeed, this is something I'd like to get feedback from yourselves this evening. But yeah, this is certification that's ongoing, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. And this is a UK, we have a UK patent and a US patent granted for the product, very much in keeping with want to protect our innovation, but then expand and have a real commercial longevity with this product to make the real impact that we want. We're also looking to expand into Europe and Canada in the next couple of years. So we have a sort of standard K-Briq. We have, if you can see my screen, I've got one here. This looks much like an extruded brick product with 3 perforations. This is the first revision of the K-Briq, and we have what we're calling our sort of stock colours across down the left-hand side there. So dark greys, browns, reddish brown, more of an olive colour, and then a red and a blue. Well, pink and a blue. But as said, we also have an innovation where we use recycled pigments. So a bit more of the cubes on the right there are the kind of raw pigments that we use to blend together to make basically any color under the sun. This is a CMYK chart, if anyone's familiar with that. So we blend these much like your printer does at home to generate any color under the sun. So again, kind of another more innovative use of recycled materials, and a way of kind of offering something more than some of the traditional makers. So I just wanted to show you some of the developments. So these are some of our kind of sample walls on the left and the right there. And then in the center, we're developing slips of a variety of different colors. And indeed, I've got these here with me, if you can see me waving these in the air. And these are, some of the bespoke colors and some of the more interesting and wild colors. We're looking at both for some interior projects and indeed to get interested designers, specifiers into the slip and using it in different innovative ways. Just before jumping on this main call, we were discussing how we could use some slips in landscaping, and I'd be interested to hear more from yourselves about that. Again, so we were recently we're up for Product of the Year at the British Design Museum. On the left-hand side, this is one of the really eccentric colours that we sent down, but just to show really the flexibility of this colour development that we've been looking at. And then on the right-hand side, more standard versions, and trying to mimic some of the more traditional products. So in the middle there, there's a standard concrete block size, standard UK block size, and an aerated block that we've been developing. Again, we'd be very interested to hear more about if there was interest in that. So this is a bit about some of our kind of anticipated sale prices and some of the initial kind of technical aspects, and relating those to some of the more traditional products out there. So traditional facing brick, clay brick, and brick specials. Just again showing we're a bit more nimble in terms of the shapes, sizes, revisions, and so we can compete nicely with other kind of traditional clay makers and those specials that are often quite difficult to get or very expensive, and other eco products, eco bricks that are being developed that so far haven't produced certainly the finish and really the kind of sustainable credentials that we feel that we're offering. Just a little bit about the team. So Rachel very kindly gave me in the introduction there, but my background is I have a PhD in carbon assessment, which was of offshore wind power, but it was from a civil engineering perspective. So it's really about the materials, the products, and the processes by which those products are made. So that's been my entire kind of bringing to the table of my ethos and focus on really the sustainable credentials. Professor Gabriela Medero is co-founder, and it's kind of her original brainchild. This entire concept of reusing and recycling construction wastes and how we can bring that into the 21st century and really bring products to market that are particularly in demand and what specifiers and architects want moving forward. Our chairman, Dr. Andrew Hosty, he was former COO of Morgan Advanced Materials, so a very large ceramics company. He was more recently the CEO of the Henry Royce Institute at Manchester University, and he was the president of CIRAM, which became Lucidian, which is the largest testing house for bricks in the UK. So I'd hope you agree, a strong backing of the team there, and indeed you might notice some of the surnames for some of our brick products, our initial K-Briq colours, but this is some of the rest of the team that we've got involved. In terms of where we are, so our sort of company in a small scale launched last year in quite difficult times, but fortunately, we're still very much in our growth phase, and we've been conducting a number of small trials on the pilot plant, on the small scale production that you saw in the video, and a humongous shout out to Zero Waste Scotland, who we've just signed up with for their circular economy investment fund, which will be supplying nearly £1 million to Kenoteq from April, to drastically expand and improve our production facility, which is based at Hamilton Waste and Recycling at one of their sites. And for the next for the 12 months from April, we'll be gearing up to a production capacity of 3 million K-Briqs a year, also with the ability to have specials made and indeed keep developing our prototypes, with a view to be fully certifying our product by the end of 2021. And by full certification, I mean the Agremont certificate from the BBA. And all the while, in the meantime, we're having third-party testing done by various test houses, one of which is Stanger in Glasgow, if you guys know that one, which is all part of de-risking prior to the final certification and looking to make orders all the way through next year, and start that kind of volume sales at the end of this year, start of next. And then the future business model is to then replicate that, the production systems across the UK and then further afield with waste handlers and other potential manufacturers, and again follow the resource, follow the materials, and really ensure that we're not just producing here and sending all over the globe. We're following development, and we're following the waste, and we're trying to be as kind of local and as regional as possible in our production. So I'm going to stop there. There's a few kind of headline things. Our Product of the Year nomination. We've won a few awards: Innovation Award, Circular Breakthrough Award. We're the only product named in the SEPA housing plan for new sustainable products. And yes, so my big excitement now is really to hear from yourselves in the crowd and get a bit of feedback on how we can bring this product to your world, and what you would want to see from that. So thank you very much for the time. I hope you found that interesting. I appreciate it on a Tuesday evening, listening to me ramble on. So yeah, excited to hear more from yourselves.
Thank you, Sam. That was great. And I think you got across everything you needed to get across there. And I've got a lot of questions. Well, I've got quite a number of questions here to put to you to start with. Jelaine asked if the bricks aren't kiln fired, how is it set? Is that your special secret sauce?
Yes. So without giving away all of the proprietary information, so we've developed a binder and indeed our process by which we put together the different input materials, the recycled aggregates, the recycled plasterboard, and then our kind of patented binder brings the product together. So it's cured, and within sort of 24 hours, basically from the material going through our mixers to being able to be packed and ready to go, the product is ready. So there's no high firing. It's a curing system, and our high compression and the hydraulic presses and the compression that's used in the manufacture.
Great, thank you. Someone else asked here, are you going to be able to supply in small quantities? So if you wanted to do a patterned wall, for example.
I saw that one coming in. Yes, absolutely. And certainly in our kind of growth phase over the next 12 months, these are the sort of projects we're looking for. But yes, absolutely. There'll be both the stock product that will be available kind of in smaller scale, and then if there's bespoke options, if there's those sorts of things to discuss, we want to maintain that ability to have unique options, bespoke colors, bespoke options, and indeed kind of multi blends, if that answers that question. But it's been a lot of interest in that kind of specification led market, and even when we're at 3 million bricks a year, that's still small for the brick industry. So we still want to be absolutely flexible for the small designers and the people that are going to do the really interesting projects.
Great. I'm going to jump down a couple of questions and I'll come back. I promise I won't miss out the ones, but I think it's quite important to cover. Can they perform as a hard brick for a DPC?
So
how do they pay with water? And again, it's the frost proofing side of things. So if you could touch on that would be useful. Yeah,
so absolutely. So as part of our BBA certification that we're at I should have said we're at stage 3 of 3. So we've got through the first 2 stages of their process, and the last stage is we've set pause because it's production checks and it's certifying the new production system that we're now putting in from April with Zero Waste Scotland's support. So by the end of the year, we will have a kind of a fully accredited product. And if you would like let me give you the specific frost test that we're going for. But Rachel asked me before the main talk, will you have F2 classification? And yes, that's absolutely what we're aiming for. So the freeze-thaw resistance of the units in accordance with EN 77218. for anyone who's interested in the specific building standards. But yes, absolutely, as an F2 product. And I can see some of the questions relating to kind of paving, so that it's the same really response for that. It's absolutely something that we're aiming at.
Okay. Just whiz back up so we don't miss any out. Where do the pigments come from?
A number of areas, and we're forever looking at different waste channels and waste streams. But one such use that we've taken to date is from recycled print cartridges. So there's a company in the west of Scotland that reprocess industrial print cartridges, because in your ones at home, at least 10% of the pigments are left in printer cartridges, and they're very much kind of environmental pigments, but they're things that we utilize and blend together. But also, I mean, the colors will always come from different waste streams as we move forward. It will be always looking at different waste streams and new avenues for new products based on kind of the need of recycling.
Can I just like ask, actually, in the video you mentioned it as well, is this the sort of circular economy of the product? I appreciate with houses, you're hoping that once they're built, they're not going to really be taken down, or not for a very, very long time. In landscaping, however good our designs are, sometimes the new custodians of the garden want to change it completely. Could those bricks, could it be basically returned to yourself to be reprocessed into new bricks?
Yes, so absolutely. So ourselves and all our waste partners. So the entire intention of this is not to make a product that just mitigates the problem for 30 years, for 10 years, and just shifts it down. This can be entirely broken down and reused for the kind of 95% of a future product. So it's absolutely recyclable at the end of its life. And indeed, as part of our production process, we have a zero waste process, because any bricks that are made not to our satisfaction go back through the process as well. So yes, very much recyclable. There was a quick question in the comments about mortars, and that's also something we're looking at. So we're currently looking at lime mortars and traditional cement mortars. So a lot of our tests have been with traditional cement mortars, because the building industry still like using a lot of the traditional systems that they like, but we're very aware that that's our kind of non-sustainable elephant in the room, and we're looking at lime mortars, and indeed a dry walling system that we hope to kind of be able to speak a bit more about soon, which would also further improve this capacity to take down, to reuse, recycle, and not have to even crush up potentially. So looking at a variety of avenues for that to kind of innovate the mortars as well as the units.
Someone's asked here about when you would have long-term weathering information, so I guess how they're going to perform and how they're going to look over time.
So we do advanced aging tests, which we've been running for years at Heriot-Watt. We have environmental chambers, and this is all part of our kind of BBA accreditation, so that a lot of the durability testing has been conducted in-house and is being conducted by third parties. So we would have building warrants as a clay brick, as a concrete brick would have as standard. So that's all part of the Agrimont certification. The reality of weathering over 50 years, that these haven't been out there for 50 years. So I can only comment on the standard and what we're required to do from our side, and to offer building warrant and certification of the product. There's been use of the pigments elsewhere before us in concrete by Dundee University and others, and they've always surpassed what people thought in terms of the weathering and the sort of color change and that sort of thing. So we're very confident that there will be minimal to no change.
Oh, great.
Conversely, sorry, can you do the opposite? Can you have ones with little colour variations to give a more natural look?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've been looking to develop. We're two engineers, so Gabby and I. So we started with wanting everything very consistent, very very nice, standard colors that are exactly the same. And the more we've gone into this, that, you know, architects, designers, specifiers that at the moment want difference, variation, you know, non-linear textures, all that sort of thing. So we're very much developing that. I've got in here, appreciate it's a kind of purple and a blue, and I don't know how well that comes across, but we've kind of dappled, we call this is sort of night sky, and that's maybe not, you know, it's not a earthy color, or, you know, but it just shows that we can kind of dapple and look at different color options. You got that traditionally in clay because of the nature of digging earth out of the ground and firing it and having different minerals within the clay, but that's something we're absolutely looking to mimic. I haven't got one here. Oh yes, bear with me a second. Also, there's something else that we're looking at, which is a cut face, so you can see actually the aggregates in there, and some, you know, so this is very much old brick, old rubble, old stone. So that's something we're looking at as well, that the kind of, yeah, the cut aesthetic as well as the pressed aesthetic.
Right, okay, thank you. Right, I'm just going to go through these sort of systematically because I'm going to get lost otherwise. Can we get samples? I think a few of us would like to probably see them in real life as well.
Yes, absolutely. If I what would be best? Share my email. If anyone didn't write it down, I'll just pop it in the chat. But please get in touch. We're at the moment, as I said, we're expanding production from April, and we're kind of in downtime at the minute. But yeah, I can discuss that with everyone on an individual basis, and I'd be happy to provide samples where possible. Yeah.
I think you touched on some other projects you plan to do, and you've certainly before the chat we talked before the session we talked about making sort of pavers, a bit like the sort of Dutch paver, clay paver, a K-Briq version of that. So maybe you could touch on other things that you know that you're probably going to bring out. If we talked about the slips and then what have you, and then I guess it's also, I haven't read down the 19 other messages we've got here, but there may also be other suggestions in here, and hopefully we'll get through those.
So the K-Briq was the first product, and then versions of use of a K-Briq. A solid paver is something we're looking at. Slips is certainly something we're looking at in a variety of different shapes and sizes. So I've got a longer, thinner slip there. Well, two even longer slips. And then in more of the block size and the aerated block that you saw. And then, yes, other things are still very much in the pipeline, but slips in variety of colors, both for interior, exterior, the K-Briq, and variety of sizes, a solid unit, potentially a frogged unit, and the different longer, thinner options. And I think someone asked kind of edging, which is something we're kind of looking at more on the special side of things. Looking for something to develop, but yeah, I'd love also any, you know, if people want to feedback other things, other shapes, versions, revisions, other options, other applications, then always willing and happy to hear more about that.
I can share this, and at the end of this chat, Sam, I'll download a copy of it and send it to you, so you've got people suggesting, and then obviously if anyone's got individual things they can send to you too. You showed us a timeline. Do you know when they'll be available to buy and how we can buy them?
We think by the end of the year, because until obviously that certification happens, that's what we're aiming for. So it'll be the end of the year, realistically. Yeah. Okay. And we're looking for potential for demo projects, and we've got a small amount of, you know, kind of stock for possible demonstration projects. So if you know, if people are willing to try small things, try little things without the wider certification, then absolutely willing to discuss that as well, because that would be a tremendous benefit for us, exciting for us to see it going into things. And as I said, we've got kind of limited stock, but some stock from our pilot production facility.
Can a K-Briq or block wall be rendered?
It absolutely can. Yes, I would say it was a crying shame to cover up my lovely K-Briq, but yes, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we want it to be used in applications like a traditional clay or you know, clay brick or concrete brick. We want people to see it. Gabby and I often talk about the biggest compliment you can pay the K-Briq is to say, oh, it looks and feels like a normal brick. You know, that's what we're wanting to do, wanting to replicate, you know, very different in technology and development, but, you know, we want it to be used as widely as traditional clay brick and concrete brick has been used.
Do you have data on the water absorbency rate?
Absorption. It's very comparable to clay-fired products. So we're kind of in the range of anything from sort of 6 to 11%. Something that we're looking to develop, and with all of our technical credentials, while we're still putting in the new system, I'd rather not share more information than that unless people want to get in touch individually and we can put in NDAs, etc. But until it's published, we don't have a formal technical data sheet, because these things will always slightly change, and as we develop, as we bring in the new system, they'll improve. But we're very much comparable with a Ibstock brick, with a traditional clay type product or other products out there, for things like water absorption. Yeah.
So just so I guess it'll change colour when it gets wet then, like a brick would do then? And
yes, they often darken, yeah, and it's something that architects regularly do, whether they lick their thumb and give it a rub, or they pour their coffee or whatever you want. Yeah, I mean it very much. I mean, I don't know if I should do it here, but the blue, they darken much like traditional. Yeah.
Will you be? Well, someone suggested here creating a permeable option.
Is that in terms of a paving type?
Yeah, I guess it would be a paver. So it would be, so you've got gaps you can let water run through, a bit like
something, permeability to a brick from my sort of perspective of testing within the product is a dangerous thing, but absolutely, you know, around the pavers and that sort of thing, if that was possible, we'd absolutely look at that. The actual product to be permeable it's always a difficult balance between permeability and durability. So something I've not considered within the product itself, within the unit, but absolutely within a paved area, I'm sure you could develop that. Yeah. I hope that answers that question.
I hope so too. Yes. Do you recommend a particular mortar to be used with the K-Briqs?
So that's as I kind of briefly mentioned that, but we're developing with the BBA as part of the accreditation a design guide, and within that we would hope to have a standard cement mortar and different mixes of cement mortar and a lime mortar. Yeah, so at this stage, kind of a sustainable option and a more traditional option.
Traditional, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any particular areas where the K-Briq is always outperformed by standard bricks?
The bricks that we're not challenging is the kind of engineered bricks, so the much higher compressive strength, much more durable engineered bricks, which from our research represents kind of about 10% of the market. That's not something we're competing with. The very, very strong bricks. There might well be future K-Briq versions, K-Briq options that offer that, but at this stage, we're not at the very, very high end of the kind of very high compressive strengths, and I'm talking kind of over 50 newtons per millimeter squared. Some of the much higher figures that you would find. Again, we're very comparable to 80% of the facing brick out there on the market, and we're stronger than a concrete brick would be.
Great. So looking at the time, rushing on, and everyone people writing more and more messages. I think you've covered the sort of the bespoke sizes, so that you can do that, and hopefully some of these products like the clay pavers or the Vandermortel clay bricks or whatever, you could produce something like that. I guess, yeah, the specification for the K-Briqs will be the same for retaining walls in terms of strength and construction. So if you were to build a wall that's a metre high, excuse me, out of K-Briqs, you'd use the same specifications if you were using clay bricks.
Yes, we would. Yeah, and again, once we've got that certification, it's all part of the technical data we're required to provide, flexural bond strength. So we test and have been testing for many years at the university larger panels of the bricks. So you conduct large tests both vertically and horizontally of bending and snapping walls. So all of that information will be available upon certification. And again, we're very much comparable with facing brick that's out there on the market. Yeah.
Okay. Someone else here, the the secret component for the curing, has it been shown not to leach out, and is it safe in aquatic systems?
I'd be interested to know quite what an aquatic system is. I mean, I noticed there was another comment there about weeping effervescence. So this is all part of the certification, and we don't have as high a salt content as traditional a lot of clay brick products do. Obviously there's a range there, but we have a much lower soluble salt content than clay bricks, certainly, because of the nature of the material that we're using. We often see this is old brick, cement, old concrete, old stone that goes in as the majority of our product is this recycled aggregate. So there's a lesser degree of that effervescence. Yeah. The aquatic environment, I'm not altogether sure, but I think it all leads into our water absorption and the effervescence. I see no reason why not, but I don't know yet. I wouldn't be so keen on specifying this straight away to build a large pond or what have you, but I'd be very interested to sort of trial it.
Okay. Can they be laid on K-Briqs? Be laid on a sand base and kiln dried sand for joints and what have you?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, no reason why not. Yeah.
Okay.
That's as much as, I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, that kind of as a paving solution, that's largely your sort of filler beneath there, or do you mean as a walling system?
No, that would be for paving system.
Yeah, no, I see no issue with that. Again, caveat that paving is our kind of one of the options that we're looking at. So it's not something we've specifically tested, but all of it, once the certification's there and the testing's there as a facing unit, I'm sure these things will be translatable, relatively straightforward.
Great. Going back to colouring again, would it be possible to make bricks that match sort of the colours of the brick facade because it's often needed for planning? Absolutely.
That's been the sort of bespoke nature. We've been contacted by a number of different people, such as football teams, saying, here's a colour, can you match this colour, with very specific Pantones, and because we use the CMYK chart, it's very much something we look at and can do. Because, as you rightly mentioned, planning around the UK and wider afield, there's a reason that Edinburgh is the colour it is, Manchester is the colour it is, and that's from the minerals in the rocks that were in the locale, and that's what we're looking to be able to be more nimble but absolutely match. Yeah. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
I think following on from a question I asked earlier on, is how can we be sure that the waste of any K-Briqs waste goes to the right place to get recycled back into your product?
So yes, so I suppose to clarify, this is we wouldn't go on to a project, take the waste away ourselves, reconstitute it and bring it back. We're looking at the bigger picture. So we want our waste handlers and other waste handlers around the UK, they're routinely bringing in this construction demolition waste, and we take it for a number of possible suppliers, as long as they've got the environmental certification. So up here, obviously CEPA certification on the different waste streams. We're happy to take it. Now that might have come from a development in the central belt. It might have come from further afield, but as long as we feel like we're interacting with that system, we're effectively storing that waste away. So I mean, if you, again, bringing it back to kind of house building, but if you're building a house out of K-Briq, you're storing 30 tons of that waste that otherwise would have struggled to find a home. So I don't want to mislead people that we're taking the exact thing from one place, and again, that's a possible future avenue. And people often talk about kind of on-site construction and not moving materials, you know, as very far off-site, and that's something we will look at in the future. But there's a lot of issues with certifying the product if you're trying to make it on-site. If you're trying to do things not in a factory environment, then it's much more difficult to get your quality and your credentials in place. So, you know, we want to have, as I said, sort of regional depots and our waste handlers, preferred waste sites, that the waste comes into them. You know, remember, they have a truck, empty truck leaving, going to a site, picking up all this stuff, bringing it back. We would then be able to put bricks onto that, you know, and have it delivered to site without adding more logistics, more sort of transport. But yes, again, don't want to say that every grain of this aggregate that's come out of this site is going back into the brick that's going to that site. That's not yet. I think that's the kind of the goal for everybody, but one step at a time. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm just skipping through the questions here. There's quite a lot of comments, people making suggestions for your K-Briqs or the next steps and stuff. So I won't go through them all here. I think some of them we've touched on. So I'll send, as I say, I'll send this to you so you've got a copy of it.
Yeah. I'm following some of these, Rachel. If I could just respond, there's a few at the end that kind of allude to, again, this issue about the contamination or the input materials. So again, a waste handler has the certification from SEPA and or environment agencies, etc., down south, but they have to reprocess this waste. So when we're using an SEPA certified inert recycled aggregate, that's been washed, screened, and sorted by the waste handler, and then we come in and utilize that. So there's no metals, no plastics, no organics. They have toxicology tests regularly done. So that's, and then we have an additional check ourselves when that comes to us to ensure that the waste handler is providing what they say they are. But there's a few kind of checks in the process. And this, always bearing in mind, this isn't kind of municipal waste. So it's not your everyday waste. It's not all of the masses of waste that goes in a bin. It's construction and demolition waste. So very much sorted and processed accordingly. But we rely on SEPA, we rely on the waste handler, and then our check to ensure that that's all correct.
Okay, I think that's useful information to get that across. Thank you. I think, does each batch have the same or different proportions or type of construction waste input materials?
Yes, it does. Yeah, well, the same certified waste. So, you know, from batch to batch, there might be subtle variants. I've seen a few people ask this, and this is the nature of using a recycled content. But as you know, in the many years we've been at this, subtle changes in the batch, it's largely a color thing, is something that we can very much kind of respond to and be nimble around. There will always be the occasional contaminant that comes in. I mean, that's not unique to our process. I've been to brick factories in Belgium where bullets have turned up in their clay from World War I and all sorts of things. So that's just something that we are developing as part of our manufacturing process. We have an ISO 9001 now in the process, and we're looking at other standardization, and indeed the BBA come and do their factory check. So it's all part of delivering a consistent and quality product to market. That these are all, I want to assure people that these are all checks that we do regularly and third parties do.
Great. Unless I've missed anything, I think that's pretty much all the questions. So please speak up if anyone's got any questions or anything, if I've missed any of them, because there was a lot of questions there. Silence. So clearly I covered them all. Great. Well, I think that's fantastic. I think from the level of questions and information we've got in there. Oh, sorry, go on, Becca.
Was Douglas trying to ask a question? He was on mute. That was my only.
Oh, I didn't see.
Thank you for that, Becca. Yeah, I was trying to ask a question. I haven't got the hang of the technology. I was going to ask about the colours. Sam, you mentioned that your colours are coming from other sources, so it seems to me that the pigments that you're using may not be fully light fast because they were not originally intended to be. So they could change over time, exposed to light. So that's part of my interest in color. But the other part is, what is essentially the base color? And if we were to like to use your product, could we effectively do something along the line of the sort of brindled effect that many buildings are going up in now, where a wall is built of bricks of different shades?
Thank you, Douglas. Yeah, so we as part of the certification, we're doing a UV light aging testing and color measurement, color fastness. And as I think I briefly mentioned, so Dundee University before us were running large trials on the same pigments, but set in concrete pavers. And this is now 13, 14 years of testing, and these pigments are surprisingly durable for that color fastness. We're not the only industries that use those, and obviously printers use them in very small quantities. So we feel very confident with the initial pigments we're using. And yeah, as I said, we're always looking at other pigments and other options that add to our product. In terms of the kind of base color, it's imagine you sat with your Play-Doh and all the different colors go in. It always tends to end up quite brown. That happens with us. But then we do the color matching and the modification. That's also part of using recycled. We use gypsum from recycled plasterboard. That has another ability to kind of lighten and offer a base. But from batch to batch, there's no one set kind of base color. Our dark gray is our sort of the first color and the color we're happiest with. But yeah, there's dark gray is our sort of stock #1 color, but then there's absolutely options. I think you also asked about kind of shades across a wall, or that ability. Yeah, so absolutely something we have looked at and are looking at, both multi-blend, so kind of you could have 3 packs of slightly different colors, and it'd be up to the brickie to lay those. Quite an important aspect is that the sort of quality in the bricklaying. And yeah, again, it's something we can be very, very subtle and precise with the colors because of this sort of CMYK chart. I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, you have. Thank you.
Okay. Jelaine asked here, are you working on a cement alternative? Is that cement or mortar, or?
I'll assume that's probably the mortar system. So again, we're looking at lime, sort of being able to specify a lime mortar as well. I would love for Kenoteq in the future to have its own sort of mortar system. Not yet. Watch this space.
Quite a lot to do already.
Our expertise has been in the unit itself, in the K-Briq. Yeah, and there's a future possible development of this dry walling system that we hope will be a success. But I don't want to say too much about that just yet.
No, that'll be interesting to find out. And I guess it would be quite nice if you maybe have any information when you get the stuff, you could send it to me and I could maybe distribute it around the various people. That'd be great. Well, thank you very much for your time. I think, yeah, it was very interesting and very exciting. So
thank you very much for everybody for listening. It's a huge array of faces up here on the wall. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and giving me this opportunity.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, all the best, everybody. Thank you.